It's time for the Wonders of Warhammer 40k podcast, and today we're talking to Steve from Who Took My Dice, and it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Okay, Ben, go, buddy, go. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I think we got away with that one. Nick speaking, and welcome to this podcast, the first podcast show of the series, and I'm with the awesome Steve from Who Took My Dice. Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining me, being the guinea pig of this show. I have to say, though, you were part of the inspiration for this show, which I'll talk about more in a second. But yeah, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm living the high life up here in Canada.
Indeed. So yeah, quite far away from me. Obviously, I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, I would seriously suggest that if we were living closer, I think you and I would be gaming for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on my bucket list of things to do.
Oh, you never know. One day. So for my viewers, I just want a quick chat about what this show is all about, because obviously it is a new series. So I'm basically going back to my roots, and part of this was inspired by Steve. I had a little idea that I wanted to do some interviews maybe with some other YouTubers, and Steve put out a video. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was What to Do Next or something like that, wasn't it, Steve?
Yeah. What should I do next?
Yeah. And basically it was a video about his channel and sort of where the channel's going, and just like a honest, genuine chat about his current situation on YouTube. And he was talking about doing collaborations with other YouTubers. And like I said, it hits a home. I've been following Steve on his YouTube channel since the beginning. I've been there right at the beginning. And yeah, I thought I'd reach out to Steve and hit two birds with one stone, a brand new show and a brand new guest on the show. So yes, it's absolutely like a pleasure to have you here. So yeah,
thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Excellent. So the format is going to basically be, I've got a few questions that I'm going to be asking you about the channel, about the hobby, and about 40k as it stands at the moment. The questions sort of aren't a rigorous, it's not a rigorous Q&A, that's the word. So the questions are there to help the conversation go effectively. But the whole idea is to have a chat about 40k and for people to find out more about you, and hopefully to go and subscribe to you, because you've got a great channel. As I said, I've been following it for years. I've really enjoyed it. And of course, there is a link to your channel in the description below. So anyone who's interested in supporting Steve, head on over, give him a sub. Right, Steve, it's not time for you to answer the questions now.
Uh-oh, a hot seat.
So yeah, we'll talk about hobby first, because I think that's obviously a very interesting topic, and I know it's something close to your heart as well. So yeah, tell us a bit about your hobby. How did you get into this hobby of ours?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I did a video about this ages ago, but I was in a city called North Bay, which is about 4 hours away from where I live right now. It's where my grandparents used to live. And I was actually looking for a comic book store, because I'm a comic book fan from when I was little, very little. And I happened to hit a store called North Bay Hobbies. I was a younger kid at the point. I said, why not? Went in, and it wasn't comic books at all. Of course, it was Warhammer, all sorts of tabletop games. Like, I remember it. There was guys playing down on some table. What game it was, I don't know. And then off to my left, there's this rack of just books. There was like Dungeons and Dragons, all sorts of stuff. And gleaming out of that was the cover to the second edition Ultramarines Codex. It was bright blue, the gold colors on it. You know, it's got this big Marine or the huge Ultramarines banner behind him. Space Marines all around him. That is so cool. So I grabbed it and read that thing back to, like, front to back, cover to cover while I was up on the trip. That was it. I was reading the story. I'm like, this is so cool. This is awesome. Huge towering space marines fighting against evil gribbly monsters in space. Like, how could I not love that?
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the jumping off point.
It's amazing how a codex can inspire you, isn't it? Because
Oh
that's
yeah,
how I got into Necrons. It was literally the picture on the third edition codex, Necron codex. I saw that picture and I just fell in love with Necrons just from that picture. So
yeah,
I picked the army from that picture on the front of the codex. That's
yeah.
how cool it was to me. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was for me. That was it. That Space Marine on front cover, the laurels on his head, this massive banner behind him. I was sold.
Excellent.
So then, of course, for Christmas, I asked my parents, and they had no idea what I was talking about. So I got a whole bunch of weird models from all sorts of the different games, from fantasy, from 40K, from other stuff. And I kind of meandered my way through there and figured it out.
Excellent. Excellent. So what armies do you own at the moment, and what armies have you owned over the years?
Well, I think it would surprise everybody to know I play Ultramarines. That one I've had since the beginning. Right now, I have a little Black Templar army as well, an Eldari army, and I've got smatterings of Necrons, Chaos, some Imperial agents. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I had back in the past, I actually had an Orc army for a little while, and a Space Wolf 13th Company army.
I've got one of those. Yeah. Awesome army, isn't it?
It was a crazy cool army.
Yeah.
It's where the Wolfen came in. It was awesome.
Yeah. I didn't like the way they sort of made it defunct though when they updated the codex. I learned a lesson, a big lesson there when that army was made defunct. Yeah, but you can do it if you're very strict on the units that you take. I think you can still play it, and I think you can almost say like the Thunderwolf cavalry. I think they match the 13th Company. Yeah, you're not allowed vehicles, are you? Not allowed vehicles in the 13th Company. You're allowed bikes, but not vehicles.
Yeah, it was very limited. Yeah, it was bikes and your Grey Slayers.
Everything was troops apart from those bikes. So I think the Thunderwolf cavalry would work quite well with that.
They would, yeah. And lots of Wolfen and I guess you'd have to take Grey Hunters for as long as they exist. I don't know how much longer Grey Hunters will be around, but
there is that of course as well, because I mean I haven't played my Space Wolves since 7th edition. Yeah. Because now they've switched all over to Primaris. That's a totally different ball game again, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I'll add a caveat to having Black Templars. I have Black Templars for now until their codex comes out, because mine is made up of old school stuff, right? So I have old school Crusader squads, not the new Primaris ones. So when that happens, I have a feeling those old school Crusader squads will go away, and so I'll be left with like some tanks. If those tanks make it through, I have some Vindicators. So I don't know how much longer they'll be around either. So
things like the Rhino probably. Yeah, it's a tough one, and it must be really hard as somebody who's been in the hobby for such a long time to have your old like mini Marines or whatever you want to call them. As an army, and then obviously they bring in all this Primaris stuff, because I think that probably half of the problem is not only is obviously the models that you already own not going to be playable anymore, but when you bought those models, your financial situation is like sometimes different. I mean,
exactly,
I'd never be able to rebuy my Necron army now, I did back in those days.
That is probably the number one thing stopping me from painting more Marines. It's the frustration level. Like when everything got dropped, it's like, okay, well, luckily my Marines are always built around lots of tactical squads. So for now, they're still there. I can still build a solid army around them, but whenever the next edition hits, they're probably toast. I have a Devastator squad that'll probably end up being toast, and haven't yet to rebuy a bunch of Intercessor squads at the price they are now compared to the price the squads were back then. Yeah, it's probably been the most frustrating part of the new codex when it came out, and the hobby in general. It's like, wow, well, I have to rebuild everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one thing over the years that I've obviously always liked about your channel, and one thing, especially right at the beginning, was the fact that you came on YouTube as an ex-employee of Games Workshop.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like a different side of things to get your sort of point of view and stuff. And I know you've always been all about the hobby. That's been like, that's what your videos are about, aren't they? Really, it's about the hobby side of things. You've done loads of scratch builds, like trash terrain and stuff. You've entered my terrain competition that I used to run like many years ago. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've sort of always like got from your channel. Now I know you have been doing some hobby, haven't you? How often do you actually get to hobby, or indeed, how often do you get to play?
Playing, I haven't played in forever.
Right.
Just because the way life goes, kids and all the obligations of life, right? Yeah. And I live out in a place where I'm not super far from gaming centers, but far enough that if I want to go, it requires a lot of planning, right? That just isn't available in life sometimes. Hobbying, on the other hand, I just entered a painting challenge for another channel, so I have some Hellblasters I'm going to get painted up. But I just try and hobby whenever I can, if it's like an hour here or an hour there. So multiple times a month. And sometimes there's a gap in there if I'm not feeling it. Other times I get hit by something and I go, oh, I gotta paint this right now. I have an idea. I gotta paint this thing right now before that feeling leaves me. So I gotta paint this thing up right now. And I do that sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's when I'm doing my hobby. Like, sometimes you just have to grab a little bit of time. Like sometimes I'll do half an hour before work. But the way I love to hobby the most is like to sit down, like put my laptop on and watch YouTube videos and stuff, and just like have a massive session, like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of just in hobby. That's how I like to hobby. That's like you just zone out, and it's just like you get loads done. That's why I think I like batch painting rather than single miniature painting, because I just feel like I can get loads done in one go.
Yeah, that's normally how I paint too.
Yeah.
I don't get 6 hours, but I'll get a couple hours, and I usually batch paint, so I'll do all of one color and all the next and that's how I've been doing it for ages. So
yeah, I suppose where I play obviously Necrons, most of my stuff is dry brushing as well, so it's quite easy to batch paint as well.
Yeah, pick the easy army. Way to go. Pick the easy.
Exactly. But it wasn't so much pick an easy army, it was more that I picked an easy paint scheme for the army.
There you go.
Because obviously a lot of people now, they paint, there's some wild colours for Necrons.
Oh yeah.
Now, it's quite interesting. So I think I would say for anyone who says like, you can't paint well on Necrons. In other words, you can't learn to paint, because sometimes if you put just dry brushing all the time, you never learn any other techniques, do you? But
I don't agree with that. I think Necrons offer a ton of opportunity. There's so many designs and angles and shapes to them. Yeah, all over that you can practice
now
every
as well. Especially now.
I
remember the first time I painted my my Deceiver. I'd painted like nothing but silver, and then all of a sudden I was painting a Deceiver, and I was copying the artwork from the Codex. That's my army from the Codex.
Yeah.
So I was trying to paint this Deceiver, and of course we didn't have washes and shades back then. We had inks.
Ugh.
So
I remember the inks.
I've got red ink on there, and I'm really proud of that Deceiver. For my first really out of my comfort zone miniature, I think it came out pretty well.
It did.
But yeah, there's definitely opportunities with Necrons.
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
There's enough on there in variation that you can practice any sort of painting style on them, and it should look good.
Yeah. So obviously I know you haven't played a lot recently, but you must have played a fair amount in the past.
Oh yeah, lots.
Yeah. Do you have like a fun wargaming story? What's your best wargaming story?
There's a lot of them. There's been lots of little ones, like back in the day, setting up your Marines on a table and people going, oh, and then start readjusting their deployment. Because you're like, yeah, I put Marines down. What do you want? I think the one that stands the most, I had us when I, you mentioned me working at Games Workshop. When I was there, we did a staff challenge thing. So customers come in, they challenge the staff and all that. It was quick battles, 45 minutes. And I think the main objective was a Baneblade in the middle of the table, right? Now this is before Baneblades became part of the game. This is when they had just come out for the first version of Apocalypse, right? So they weren't legal in a standard game, right?
Yeah.
And so I was playing my Ultramarines, and this guy brought in, and he designed his army to challenge staff, right? So it had it was a Chaos Space Marines, a Demon Prince, a squad of Chaos Space Marines, and a Defiler. It was like a small 500-point game, and he filled it with two big things. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna hurt, right? A Defiler. So I realized, okay, I'm gonna ignore the Defiler. He's leaving the background. He's using his artillery piece. Great. He's not gonna hit anything. The Demon Prince worried me, and then the Chaos Space Marines, like, okay, I can deal with them. And so proceeded to play the game. I had a scout squad, which I desperately miss nowadays with their sniper rifles, was peppering the Demon Prince the whole game and just stripping him of wounds a little bit at a time. I had two small tactical squads and a chaplain that were in the middle, and he was beelining for them. I knew, okay, they're going to get toasted. It's a Demon Prince, right? And I had a squad of veterans that I was basically sneaking up the right flank, and they got on the objective. So, of course, the Defiler does nothing. My tactical squads and veteran get rid of the Chaos Space Marines. They ran off the table. And the Demon Prince, like I predicted, ripped the chaplain into two squads apart. They were small 5-man squads, right? So it wasn't just ripped them apart. But at the very end, I guess he realized that we were playing for the objective, and I like to do that. That's how Marines play. You have an objective, you do it. He charged in. The Demon Prince had 1 wound left because my sniper rifle's been peppering him and slowly winding him down. That was the only way I was going to hurt him. I fired a missile at him. It bounced off. Bolter rounds are bouncing off everything. He charged in. Of course, the Baneblade was count as cover, so he got to fight last. Right. I had to roll 6s to hit him and 6s to wound him. Managed 1 hit, managed 1 wound, and he failed his armor save. The Demon Prince just dropped. I'm like, and so that was it. It was cinematic. Yeah, this massive Demon Prince charging in, a Marine just going and drop him.
I think that sometimes that it's not necessarily the whole game that you remember, is it? It's like that one little thing in the game that makes the game epic.
Yeah, I've had lots of those. But it's all these little things in there.
It's not my story; it's my buddy's story. But I was playing my Eldar, and I had my Forge-World avatar, and he was playing Orcs, and he got him down to 1 wound, and guess what took the last wound off? It was a grot.
Oh,
my grot!
That's painful.
I mean, my avatar fell to a grot, and he loves it. That's like his favorite memory.
Yeah, that's the sore part. You're like, I'm gonna take him on. This guy's gonna wreck everything, and then a grot's like, poke.
Yeah. I mean, I love those like old stories because it reminds me about the old times of 40k, which I don't think we've really got at the moment. Do you remember Chapter Approved?
I love Chapter Approved.
Yeah, the Chapter Approved come out, and do you remember you used to kit bash and make your own miniatures, and they gave you ways to make the points for those miniatures?
Oh yeah.
There was I think it was called. Yeah, gargantuan models.
Yeah, they had the
and there was like a chart, so you could, if whatever toughness you wanted, whatever strength you wanted, and it gave you the points, from this chart. And I remember I made this big. It was my son's like dinosaur toy, but I used it as a big monster, Tyranid monster, and I did all the points and stuff. It came to like 600 points, and you just it's just fun, so much fun, which I'm not saying 40k isn't fun today, but I think it was definitely more about the hobby back then than probably it is today.
Yeah, no, I remember those things. There was the vehicle creation chart where you could build your own vehicles, whatever weapons. There was a creature creation chart.
That's right.
Which that was the big one. So you could build whatever you wanted. Anything from if you wanted to catch you wanted to create a Katakan devil to some massive beastie, right down to if you want to do Exodite Eldar and put an Eldar on a dinosaur.
Yeah.
God, yeah, there's so many different ones. They're all really, really cool. Yeah, it's the hobby. The hobby's sort of been going out of it for a while.
Yeah, and even the new miniatures, which are like they're awesome looking.
Oh yeah,
they're all like push fit single pose things, aren't they nowadays?
Yeah, the monopose is huge now.
Yeah,
monopose is huge. Yeah, I remember when I was working there. I worked at Games Workshop twice. The second time, it was vastly different. The culture was different. Everything was different. And yeah, it wasn't about hobbying anymore. It was just about the sales. I worked at a one-person store at that point as like a second, like a key timer. So I wasn't there all that often, but I was there often enough. But yeah, it was a one-person store, so you couldn't do any of the old painting lessons or demo games or hobby lessons that you used to be able to. And then of course, as they got rid of building your own terrain as they started building their own, right? And again, it's fantastic looking terrain. Some of it's just stunning stuff. But yeah, it's all a lot about put it together, paint it, and throw it on the table. Yeah. And I remember the old days where, the original version of the Cities of Death, the city fight stuff, they had to modify the rules because they knew people were not going to be using standardized terrain. They're going to be using terrain they made at home. Games Workshop back then didn't really sell that much terrain. So yeah, the hobbying's definitely, it's still there, obviously, and people still do an amazing job painting and modifying models. But yeah, it is different now. It's far more leaning towards the competitive tournament scene now.
Yeah,
and not that's a bad thing. I mean, that's cool. But yeah, it's definitely veered in that direction more than anything else.
Yeah. So do you have any plans for a new army then? I mean, obviously, if what happens to your Marines, then what do you think about maybe getting Necrons? Get those Necrons up together.
There's a couple answers to that. The simple one is no. I have so many Marines to paint right now. I have a good chunk of the Leviathan box set my wife got me to do, and I haven't even touched the Tyranids of that. So I still got lots of Space Marines, Terminators, and characters, and all that stuff to paint up. I still have, Hellblasters, like I said, to do. I have Gulliman to paint up. He's been sitting there 3/4 painted for a while. Necrons, maybe. I don't know. I would have to... I don't know. Maybe. I'll give you an answer. Maybe. I don't know. Okay. If there was an army I would want to do, probably Necrons, just because I could paint it up quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, that would be probably it. And Necrons are they've been one I've been reading about for a while. I didn't like them so much back in the day because I found them kind of boring, because they were before they had their massive retcon. They were kind of just the undead of space.
Yeah.
Right, there was like, okay, so evil star gods and skeleton warriors. Okay, that it's okay. There were some cool stories and some rather terrifying fluff in there of gods posing as humans, and Abaddon, because Abaddon, there was a story about Abaddon in the Necron Codex about him figuring out what's on Mars, and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. But other than that, it was just an army of the undead in space.
Yeah, and also they I mean, personally, I loved them, of course, but certainly, obviously, there weren't an amazing amount of options.
No.
And they were very expensive in points as well, for the right reasons, because of how RP worked and stuff back then. So there was a limited amount of miniatures and stuff, and a limited amount of war gear. It's pretty hard to like do much.
Yeah.
I can see that. I'll tell you the one thing which I found with Necrons is I found it much harder to learn the main rules for Necrons than my buddy who played Blood Angels did. And the reason for that was because of all the sort of the universal special rules,
Yeah.
Yeah. he had like force weapons and
Yeah.
power fists and all that sort of stuff. So he knew a lot of the main rules, and I didn't really get to use them because my army didn't have them. So I was much slower learning the rules at first than he was, just down to the fact that the limitations of the army. I don't regret playing Necrons, obviously. I absolutely love them. But yeah, that's one thing I noted when I first started playing. He learned the rules much quicker than I did. But yeah.
Well, Space Marines, I think, have always been like the easiest army to play, even now, because rules-wise, they're not too heavy. I mean, everything's super rules-wise heavy nowadays, but they weren't too heavy, and they let you play in every element of the game. Right?
Yeah.
In movement, they had good movement. Back when you had Psychic Phase, they were in that, shooting, close combat, and then you get other armies that were missing that, like the Necrons. It was basically just a big shooting army. So you kind of moved and shot and hope you didn't get into combat because you didn't have any power weapons.
Yeah, well, don't tell me about the sweeping advance rule.
Yeah.
I hated
that.
And
then, what was it? It's called Reanimation Protocol. So back in the day, because Games Workshop had a quirkier sense of humor, it's called We'll Be Back, right? An ode to Terminator and all that.
Yeah.
And they also had their phase-out rule. So if you actually killed enough of the army, even if you didn't kill them all, they would just simply disappear, which I always found a bit weird. It's like, why would I want to play an army that if I lose enough, I auto lose? Like I just poof, they just disappear. They're gone from the table. It's like, oh, well, you killed, I think it was something like you had to drop 75% of the army. And if you're down that 25 or lower than that 25%, they just went poof. I'm like, well, that's weird. And why would you do that? But
yeah, it is an odd one. I mean, I was very happy that it disappeared, to be fair, as a rule. Yeah. But also, there was something quite fun about it. When you lost the game and your army just phased out, it's like you never died. It's like my army never died. It just phased back to the home world and then came back again.
I mean, I get, there's a coolness to that. Like I said, originally didn't like it too much. Now, with the big retcon they had, and they went from just being undead to actually having personalities and different dynasties, and they actually smashed their gods to pieces and are now using them as weapons. I'm like, okay, that's a lot cooler. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I have to say, I like the original lore, but then I grew up on that original lore.
Yeah.
Cool. But I'll have to take my hat off to GW. They have done a great job revamping the army.
Oh yeah.
You've got to do that really for them. Okay, well that's all the hobby sort of questions. So I thought maybe we'll have a chat about your channel now. As I said, there is a link to Steve's channel in the description below, and I would have really appreciate it if you went over and gave him a sub, and I'm sure Steve would appreciate it as well.
Yes, I would.
Yeah. About your channel then. So what inspired you to actually start your YouTube channel?
Well, the original idea for the channel started off as a blog online. A friend of mine and I were doing it for a little while. It didn't go very far. I was about the time I started. I was back in college for some computer stuff, and I was just hopping on YouTube. It had been around for probably about a decade at that point, and I started seeing channels like yours, a whole bunch of other ones. I'm like, I've done this for a living. I should maybe say something, right? I've been in the belly of the beast. I've been on both sides of the counter, and I decided, maybe I should say something. And so I created my channel, hummed and hawed over the name for a while. And the original name came from a joke my friend and I had, because when we play, our dice would get mixed together, and the joke was, okay, who took my dice? Right? And then we laugh and gather up our dice and all that. And we started the blog with that name as well. And then eventually when I decided to do the channel, I called him up and said, hey, do you mind if I use the name for my channel? He said, sure, go for it. And that was sort of how it happened.
I had a blog, actually. Yeah, I remember the days of the blogging. Yeah, I had a blog. I had it for about 10 years. Yeah, but it was taking up, well, it wasn't so much the time to do the posts. I think it was more the case that the traction on the blog compared to like the YouTube channel is slightly different ball game.
Infinitely smaller.
I retired the blog. It is there still. I've got, you know, archives of posts, but obviously now I just like concentrate on the YouTube channel. So how long have you actually been on YouTube then? I think I had a look, and it's about 8 years, isn't it?
Yeah, 2016. My date it says that 2016 is when I first signed on. I don't think I did anything till like early 2017. But yeah, so it's been about 8 years now since I started it, and it's been sporadic at some points. It's been all over the place because I'm still learning. But yeah, it's been fun.
Cool. I suppose that's sort of the next question. Like, how is your channel doing at the moment? Because obviously we talked about the video that you put out not that long ago, you know, about trying to get some inspiration, I suppose, for the channel.
Yeah.
What's been going on?
It's limping along. I mean, it was always going to be just something for fun. Even when I started it, before all the weird ad stuff took place and algorithms and all the weird stuff that we've all seen over YouTube in the last decade or so, it was just about fun. I never looked at it going, "Oh, I'm going to make a living off of this. I'm going to be one of these big YouTubers, styling and profiling on jets everywhere." Yeah. It's fun. I do it, and half of it's even just for myself, just to say stuff and paint stuff and do stuff. So I think it's doing fine for me anyways. Would I love to have millions of subscribers and millions of views? Absolutely. But it's just for fun for me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is a danger, I think, if you start to just do it for views and subscribers. It can be fun, like at first, but then it becomes a bit of a slog because
it does.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's one reason why I'm really enjoying this type of thing. I've slightly changed like my channel recently, going back to my roots a bit more, sort of more hobby stuff. I do like making tactical videos, but what I'm finding with the tactical videos now is where the game's changing so much, like all the time.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Tactical videos they go out of date so quick that you'll make a video and then like 3 weeks later GW changes the rules, and whereas say in 7th edition, for example, those tactical videos, they might be a bit more evergreen. So you make the video, it might last for a couple of years, so it can be tough. But I really enjoy the community. That's what I like about YouTube itself,
Yeah.
And we do have an amazing community.
We do.
My Facebook page, the IDICBeer unification, everyone's on there posting their videos. I made that page because there were so many complaints on social media about people like putting links for their videos. I said, well, I'm going to make a page, and the restriction is post whatever you like about your hobby, because we want to share our hobby, don't we?
Mm. Oh yeah, that's one of the main reasons I think a lot of us get into it. I mean, it's obviously to paint up the crazy looking warriors and marines and then go pew 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 across the tabletop with your friends. But yeah, it's that's the important part. It's the friends part. It's the sitting down with your friends and a drink and rolling some dice or meeting new people at your local gaming store or online. Like I can't tell you how many people I've met across the world. A lot of them strangely in the UK. I mean, that's a problem to have, right? But it's meeting people from around the world, building relationships, hopping on Facebook pages and seeing the immense work, the crazy stuff other people are doing. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I even went work for Games Workshop, is because I love the hobby and I wanted to share it with other people. Yeah. Right? So
I mean, I'll be honest, I think pretty much everyone that I play these days I've met through YouTube. Yeah, because my old gaming buddy, unfortunately, he's ill and he can't really game anymore. I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't have YouTube. Would I even be doing the hobby still? Sometimes I ask myself that question. I do enjoy the painting and converting and stuff enough that I think I probably would be doing it. But actually gaming, I don't know.
No.
It's interesting, isn't it? What the YouTube journey is actually like, and how it can change your perception of the hobby as well.
Well, I mean, that's one of the big things. Like, it's something I do for myself. It does let me connect to people, because life, kids and family and all that, and a lot of that ends up eating up a lot of your time, and so you don't have time to go to your local gaming store all the time, and you don't have time to hang out with the people you used to. So it is a great way to connect, and even if you just say, "Hey, man, great video," and send a like to them, people go, "Oh, cool! Someone recognizes me," and there's a connection there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. So, what do you enjoy the most about your channel? Would you say? I know you've done some live streams, haven't you, a little while ago?
Yeah.
Do you like going live?
I do. I've been messing around with live streaming stuff to make it look better, because I think I owe it to the people watching to make it look better, because it's been kind of plain and so I'm messing around with that, and I don't want to go live again until I figured all that stuff out, because I've tried to mess around with stuff, and there's glitches and there's errors. I'm like, okay, well, I can't do this because it looks kind of sloppy. But
I'll tell you what, I mean, the way I do it is, when I make a video, there's like, sometimes, there's quite a few things in the video maybe you're not quite happy about, What I always try to do is work on one thing at a time. So it's like, rather than trying to fix everything and make everything like awesome, it's like, pick one thing, say, right, in my next video, I'm going to make that better. Yeah. Even now I do it. I've got this like vase of flowers like right next to me.
Yeah.
Right? And it sometimes I think you get this massive shadow from there. And I thought, right, in the next video, I'm going to get that shadow out. And I did. I adjusted the lighting and everything to get rid of that shadow. So yeah, I think sometimes like picking out small things and then just gradually improve each video as you go along is better than just saying, right, well, I'm not going to do anything, and not until it's perfect. Because to be honest, it probably never will be.
No, that I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just I'm not looking for perfection, but when things start shutting down while you're messing with it, okay, why did that happen? It's more of a learning, like, why that happened, why this, like, I work in the IT field, right? So a lot of my time is analytically studying stuff and going, why did this happen, and trying to find out why it happened and fix it. It's sometimes a detriment to me doing stuff, but a lot of times, okay, well, I just turned this on and everything shut off. Why? Right? I don't want to be in the middle of saying, hey guys, all of a sudden, right? It wouldn't be good.
No. I mean, I've had that in the past, been live streamed and it's gone off. Sometimes it's just a bad night, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens. So what would you say then is your goal for your channel then? I mean, how many subs have you got at the moment?
Let me check. I stopped keeping track of that stuff because it drives you nuts.
It can.
I have 372.
Right. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad.
It's a small drop of water and an even smaller drop of water.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of YouTube, but it's my little
hopefully
corner.
When this video goes out, you'll be up to 400 at least, surely.
Hopefully. I mean, that'd be nice. Again, I think the goal for my channel is just to keep having fun, right? The rule of cool and having fun and all that. Because there was times where I had to step away because it wasn't fun, because I was trying to chase the algorithm. I was trying to, I was competing with massive channels going, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And there's some truth to that, but it sort of became destructively comparative.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's no good looking at other channels. I mean, I've done it in the past, because everyone has a different journey on YouTube. This is my journey. I'd absolutely love to get to 100,000 subscribers. I don't think I'm going to get there.
No.
If I do, probably got to live to about 110.
Yeah. No, I'm never going to be the next, Mr. Beast or whatever.
No, this is it. I think that as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're going to have people enjoy what you're doing in return, and just that one comment that says, like, oh, thanks so much, you really helped me. I didn't realize I could do this, or whatever that one comment is when you look at your phone and you see that comment, you think, that's what makes it worthwhile.
I've had that. I've had people go, "Wow, I'm inspired," and like, okay, that was it. That was cool. That the other people that I mean, success is different for everybody, and everybody measures it differently. But that for me was like, hey, that's a success. I was able to make one person be inspired to try something new or to do this, or they were going to give up on this, but they did, and that's. I guess that would be the end goal, just to make sure everybody has the most fun as they can.
Yeah, it's a good one. So talking of that, then, do you have any exciting new videos coming up or something in the plan for the future?
I do indeed, and it's for Halloween.
Aha, right,
yes.
Okay.
So I did a live stream last Halloween. It was probably a little bit before, just because where Halloween landed. But I did sort of a survival horror game using an Imperial pilot and a bunch of Necrons. Right. And I was inspired by watching the Pariah Nexus videos that Warhammer Plus had put up.
Yeah, the show.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's something we did back in the day where we just have. When I worked at the GW store, that people just bring in like one model, their favorite model, and we threw zombies at them. Right? Didn't matter if they had the right base or not. We just threw zombies, and then we threw in stuff, random directions, guns, jamming. You could unlock a heavy weapon to help blast away the zombie horde and all that. And so I decided to do it last year, and when it got really creepy because once I finished the video and I went to edit things in it, it disappeared. Right. It was just gone. It was kind of creepy because I'm sitting there on my page going, where did it go? Like it's literally just gone. So so I'm going to be doing another one for Halloween this year. I've already painted up my unfortunate victim, and I'm trying to get the other models. So this one's going to be inspired by the Dark Tide game. Right. So obviously, if people haven't played it, it's a first-person shooter co-op game where you're running through a hive, fighting off all sorts of evil chaos scribblies, from traitor guardsmen to mutated ogrins and lots of cool stuff. But one of the big things is poxwalkers, right? The 40K version of zombies, really. Yeah. And so I haven't been able to get the models yet. I went to my local GW store and they were out. So hopefully I can get them soon. And I'm going to do sort of the same thing and have this little guardsman I painted up try and survive this horde of basically zombies, right?
That's cool.
So that's what I'm excited for.
Excellent. I look forward to that. Yeah. Well, that's our channel questions. So how we doing? We've got some time left, although these might go quite quick because you haven't played 10th edition, have you?
Not yet, no.
No. Okay. Well, I've got some questions, some topics to talk about for 10th edition. Let's see how it goes. Go for it. So do you actually keep up to date with all of the rules, even though you don't play?
I try to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the main rules. And I think that's sort of the hazard of having what's called, I think we used to call it a living rule book, where there's new add-ons and fixes all the time. So yeah, I will read through the rules. I've printed them off a bunch of times, all the fixes and addendums and all that stuff, even for Space Marines. And of course, they're putting out stuff all the time now. So I try my best.
Yeah, I think you have to, because the truth is, if you don't, it's very hard to get back into it. So
it is, yeah.
Some of my other armies, let's say my Eldar, for example, as I said, I've not played them probably since like 7th, maybe 8th edition. I haven't got a clue now. If I got the codex, I literally would have to just start the game. And then that's just the codex. Imagine if you don't keep up with the rule book as well. You haven't played for a couple of editions. So
it has, the rules haven't changed that much in terms of their overall, especially the core rules. They're the same. They got rid of the psychic phase, but now it's just in your weapons, which is, I think, streamlines it. It's still move, shoot, and attack, like it's always been. Move, shoot, attack, morale. It just changed up the way they function sometimes. But
yeah. And obviously, one big change for 10th edition is the detachments. Obviously, a brand new way to list build. No sort of like troops and elites and heavies, although I still call them that.
So do I.
It's hard not to. What do you think of like detachments in 10th edition? You think it's a good idea?
For the most part, yeah, I think it's been pretty good. Not sequestering you to have a specific amount of one style, whether it's heavy or troop. I think it's opened up a lot of options.
I think 100%. I'm liking it a lot. Yeah.
And of course, the detachments in the books are pretty cool. I mean, especially I like the Space Marines a lot, just because they do. Every Space Marine army can fit in them, but they're also, you can build unique Space Marine armies with them, which is really good. And I was actually reading through the Necron ones. It's the same with your Necrons. I think any Necron army can fit into every style in that list, or those listed attachments. However, obviously you can tailor them. The only thing I wish they bring back would be allowing certain options to become. Back in the day, we said, "Oh, this would now count as a troop choice." Maybe now battle line, because I think it has limited certain armies because you can only take so much of one thing. Especially if you want to build like a White Scars army, it does limit you to having only 3 bike squads because they're not battle line, which is kind of weird since that's what White Scars are known for, right? So I think if you could say, if you took, I don't know, a chaplain on bike or what have you, or if you take this detachment, your Outriders now become a battle line choice. So you can build 6 squads of bikes and sort of. I know you complained about your flayed ones.
Yeah,
right?
I mean they should be troops for sure. You know, have an option to get them into battle line.
I get why they're not, because I think fluff-wise they're supposed to be that thing that no other Necron wants to be around. But if you're going to create a whole detachment based around killing everything with destroyers and flayed ones, you might want to open up the option of lots of destroyers, even more so than normal and flayed ones. That to me is one of those things that sort of, I think they should add that.
What I like about it is, I always remember with the Eldar, which really I think killed my Eldar army, is when they moved jet bikes from troops to fast attack.
Yeah.
I think just having like not those categories, it's like the other category. So at the moment it's characters, and then you've got dedicated transport, some new, and then basically other. And I think that is great from the list building point of view. I don't necessarily like the fact that it's right. You can only have 5 or 10. That's it. It makes list building easier. I get it, but it sometimes can be annoying to,
I find it super annoying right now. I found I used to be able to nail lists. Like if I played a 2,000 point list, I could get 2,000 points. Now I can't. I have to like mess around, especially when you're trying to finagle 5 or 10 points. You're going.
That's right.
I wish I could take a Marine out, or I could add this, but I can't anymore because it's not an option, or I have to take 5 or 10 or 3. I don't know what the magic is with 3 now. Like half my units are like units of 3 or 6, which I don't get.
I suppose, is it down to how they sell the models, like Necron Wraiths, 7 boxes of 3?
I don't know. Maybe it could be how they package them, or how they print them, how they're constructed. But if you look at like things like Eradicators or Aggressors, or any of those more elite units for things like Space Marines, they're all 3s now, which I don't really get, because everything used to be 5 or 10, somewhere in there, or somewhere in between, because you could have a squad of 6 or 7. But I don't know. I find it weird now. That's one of those weird things. Yeah,
I suppose maybe it's down to the app, which the app is awesome. To be fair, maybe it's down to the app, because if you did it like points wise for like taking models off and on and stuff, it's probably just easier just to say 5 or 10. That's it.
It may be, it could be for ease of maybe just ease of selling and putting them in a book, right? It saves paper, saves ink, saves app space.
So, continuing on this theme, stratagems. I don't know if have you played an edition with stratagems?
I played a little bit in 9th with stratagems.
Okay. Yeah.
And stratagems have been one of those things that's appeared in in different variations. I remember playing City Fight, and there were stratagems in there. They weren't called stratagems.
No,
I can't remember what they were called, but that's what they were, right? And even now, obviously, at 8th to 9th, we had stratagems. So yeah, a little bit. They're cool, and of course, I've read through them all, and some of them are fun. Some of them just seem weird. I don't know why grenades became a stratagem, but yeah.
Yeah, and a stratagem that not all armies can use.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make sense to have a universal stratagem and only certain armies can benefit from it.
True enough. Yeah, I get it. But
stratagems.
Everybody used to have grenades of some sort. So
yeah, I think definitely better in 10th to 9th.
Yeah.
The streamlined version of it, I think, is a lot better.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do feel like I'm playing a card game though.
Yeah.
Especially with the missions as well. Everything's on a card. You've got your the data cards. Are great. To be fair, they are great. Because you can pick it up and it's easier than flicking through the book. But yeah, you've got your data cards. You've got your stratagems, and then you've got the actual mission deck as well. And it feels like a card game.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those weird things. I remember, although, I started, like you said earlier, in 2nd edition, and we had cards back then. Now, it wasn't the same way, but every single codex had cards you could cut out that had your war gear on them, or had something about your tanks, or what have you. But they were all there, right? And then, so they just let them go for a while. Then in 8th, I guess they started, hey, let's put cards back in, and on it went.
Yeah, fair enough, I suppose. So I know you haven't played 10th edition, but what is it about 10th edition you say you would like the most? What do you think that would be?
Well, fluff-wise, I like the fact that they finally pushed the story forward a bunch, because you spent lots of time in the same sort of place. I'm glad they've pushed it forward. I'm glad they've brought characters back, having Primarchs back, and really like the Silent King, Guilliman, even the Chaos, all these really cool big models that if you told me they were going to make them a decade or plus ago, I would have like, yeah, no, that's not happening. That'll never happen. We will never see Primarchs. I remember when the Horus Heresy books came out and people were like, will we see Primarchs in 40K? We're like, no. They're gods on the tabletop. You would never see Primarch. And well, I was wrong. I was wrong.
And the only way they could do that really is by advancing the story, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Rules-wise, I think they've been able to clarify the rules to a point where it's harder for people to abuse them. It still happens. There's some pretty keen people out there who are able to kind of find the loopholes, but I think for the most part, they've done a good job of keeping that sort of under wraps. They do have these meta watches they do where, okay, we're changing this, these points will go up, these points will go down. So I think keeping it as balanced as they can has been good.
Yeah. So it reminds me of a little story of my old gaming buddy, my Blood Angels guy. Whenever we used to play, obviously, like I was playing my codex for 10 years, my Necron codex, 3rd edition codex.
Yeah.
Lasted me through 3rd edition, 4th edition, and 5th edition. Before it came out, and I remember my buddy and we would play an army, and sometimes you don't realize how powerful something is until you actually play the game. And I always remember, it's like if we found like a power gamer unit, it would be like, I'm sorry about that, I won't use that next time. If it was like that good, then we wouldn't use it like the next time because we didn't like playing that way, So, that's way too powerful. I'm not going to use that next time, But obviously, I think the game is definitely a lot more balanced now, especially with all the frequent updates. Love it or hate it. As you say, the game is very competitive driven.
It is,
and the consequences of that is a pretty balanced game, because without that, it probably wouldn't be so balanced.
No, there's been, it's probably one of the better balanced editions I've played. I haven't played, but I've seen. compared to some of the other ones. There's been a few that were horribly unbalanced, and the codex creep would come in, and you'd start off with the best army, and by the third or fourth codex, you couldn't win a game just because of all the cool stuff they brought in that your codex couldn't match anymore. So I think there's definitely been a nice solidifying that, going, okay, we're going to make sure each codex is cool, and if something is too powerful, we can bring it down, points it up, and sort of make everything. It's sort of like floating in a sea of jelly right now. It's just everything kind of going up and down, but kind of balanced, kind of level.
Excellent. Well, I think we are coming to the end of the show. We're coming up to our hour. I appreciate you coming on, Steve. I hope you've enjoyed it.
No problem. I did. This has been so much fun. Thank you very, very much.
Excellent. And once again, to my viewers, a link to Steve's channel in the description below. Go and check it out. And here will be the playlist of all of the podcasts. Lots more podcasts to come. Can't wait to find out what guests I can get onto this show.
Bye.